YouTube. 1 second. All right, and the meeting is yours, Mr. Chairman.
Very good. Thanks, Jacob. Welcome to Lyon Township Planning Commission meeting for Monday, April 12th, 2021. Please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, very good. Kelly, are you here?
I am.
Hi there.
Hi there.
Welcome. You take roll, please.
Sure. Patricia Carconi.
Present in Lyon Township.
Jim Chuck.
Present, Lyon Township, Michigan.
Michael Complete.
Here, Lyon Township, Michigan.
Bronco Mikowski.
Present, Phoenix, Arizona.
Ron Pennington.
Present, Lyon Township, Michigan.
Kurt Radke.
Present, Lyon Township, Michigan.
Carl Town.
Present, Lyon Township, Michigan.
All right, very good. If we could have approval of tonight's agenda.
Motion to approve as submitted.
Second,
Okay, there's a motion was by Mr. Chuck
Correct.
and supported by Mr. Radke. I didn't get it. Is that correct?
No.
Bronco.
Bronco.
Oh, Bronco, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Okay, approval consent agenda, March 22nd, 2021 minutes.
There are no changes, deletions or additions. I'll make a motion to approve as submitted.
Support, Kurt Radke.
Motion, Mr. Chuck, support Mr. Radke. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? All right, very good. Jacob, do we have anyone in the public that has comments not related to a public hearing?
So, if anyone from the public would like to speak with the board, it is *9 to raise your hand. Oh. That. *9 to raise your hand if you'd like to share. I'm not seeing anybody, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right, thank you. Who's here tonight? Is it Brian or Chris?
Chris.
Chris, you're up. 8P 21-12B Wallbridge Line Distribution Center. If you combine both special land use and site plan review, please.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I haven't been with you guys and you just want them both right now. Is there, okay.
Let's do that, yeah.
Okay, sounds great. Good to see everyone. So I'll start with the site plan review. The applicant has proposed a 151,000 square foot spec building. So there isn't a designated use at this point, but it is within the I-2 district, and there are a range of uses that could go into the site. And of course, the site is within the Wellhead Protection Overlay District, and so that is why there is an accompanying special land use review with this item. First, I'll go into the setbacks and dimensions. The proposed building generally complies with the required setbacks for the building and parking. The lot coverage falls below the maximum allowable percentage, and the building height also complies with the requirements. Architectural elevations were submitted, and the building largely consists of precast concrete panels. There is some CMU material, as well as glazing to break up the length of the building. And then our standard kind of recommendation that even though this is a to be reviewed on an online meeting, that to the best of their ability, provide colors and samples for you guys to review. And then we'll just note that the The architect has scored the building at 70 or satisfactory, and generally we agree with that. In the dumpster and screening for the dumpster location, they've proposed 2 enclosures in the rear of the building. They're proposed to be screened with CMU block at 8 feet tall. And we note that it appears that the dumpster enclosure is separated by 8 feet of sidewalk and from the proposed building. But the ordinance requires that the proposed dumpster enclosure must be at least 10 feet away. And that the dimensions should be noted on the enclosure detail. Moving on to the HVAC equipment, the applicant has proposed a transformer on an 8x8 foot concrete pad in the southeast corner of the building. Because it's in the rear, we don't believe screening is necessary. But we do believe that the applicant should identify any mechanical equipment that would be located on the roof, or if it's ground mounted and requires screening. The photometric plan was prepared by the applicant, and we find that it complies with the zoning requirements for illumination and light fixture details. And then I'll go down the next 2 to parking. The applicant has provided an adequate number of parking spaces and loading spaces for the proposed building and site. But we note that an auto turn analysis should be turned in to ensure that emergency vehicles and tractor trailers can circulate on the site. Going into landscaping, we find that landscaping generally complies with the requirements. However, I will just note that there are some deficiencies in the required parking lot landscaping that we note there. The applicant has proposed 5-foot sidewalk along the entire Grand River Avenue frontage, and an 8-foot sidewalk along the western and eastern portions immediately butting the parking area. We recommend that the applicant construct a sidewalk connecting the proposed building's main entrance to Grand River Avenue sidewalk along both drives to encourage safe access to Grand River. And then the applicant has submitted a traffic impact assessment that indicates signal timing improvements could be made at South Hill and Grand River. And ultimately we defer to Rick and CS about the traffic study. We have identified a few items in this review which we've listed out as conditions of approval. Ultimately, I don't think that we believe that these impact the overall intensity or kind of basis for approval, but they should be corrected as a condition of approval for the site plan, along with township board approval of the special land use. So I will jump into the special land use now. There are the typical requirements for any special land use in the township, which I'll start with first. The site is largely surrounded by other industrial sites or uses, aside from one parcel that's zones B3. We believe that the surroundings are appropriate for an I2 use. The subject site is designated as light industrial office research and office in the future land use map. And as a spec building, we believe that the proposal supports the township's industrial corridor. I'll jump to the impact on traffic now. The applicant proposes 2 35-foot wide drives off Grand River Avenue with immediate access to side and rear parking. And the traffic impact study indicates tapers and spotlight timing changes at South Hill are warranted. But again, we defer to the township engineer. And then we note the same recommendation about the sidewalk connection to Grand River. As a speculative building, there are no effects identified that would be a cause for concern at this point, but as specific tenants come in, that can be re-reviewed to ensure that item 5 is met. We don't believe that will isolate any existing uses or residential uses. And we believe that the township and region continue to see a demand for industrial facilities. From here, I will go into the special land use requirements for the Wellhead Overlay Protection District. The first item is related to list of regulated substances. And again, because it's a speculative spec building, there aren't any regulated substances that are anticipated. This could change as a tenant is identified. An industrial impact statement must be submitted by prospective tenants during the special land use process that will be required prior to occupancy. However, it's not necessary at this point in the special land use review. We believe that 2, 3, 4, and 5 have been provided as required and defer to the township engineer on the services and facility structures item. And then finally, there are the 2 conditions in item 5. We believe that the project proposes minimal impacts to the existing vegetation while introducing substantial landscaping on site. And the site is designed to avoid major impacts on surrounding wetland system. And we defer to the township engineer and fire chief regarding impacts on soils, topography, drainage, and vegetation. And then just note that the proposed building is permitted in the district and prohibited uses will not be approved when tenants apply for special land use approval. So just to end it, we find that the standards for special land use approval are or can be reasonably achieved and that the project is appropriate in scale and design for the property. And we ultimately recommend approval. So if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right, thank you, Chris. Any questions for Chris?
No, not at this time.
All right, Rick, do you have anything for us?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you, and good evening. This is a site along Grand River that has access to township utilities. Water and sewer are available, and there is a stormwater outlet immediately available, which is the New Hudson #1 drain. So infrastructure is in place to service this application. A couple of things we wanted to point out, and Chris mentioned it, the traffic impact study we have forwarded to GHD, which is our consultant when it comes to traffic matters, and they are reviewing that already. And we wanted to point that out. And our other concern with the application was the township's pathway plan shows the 10-foot asphalt path along Grand River. As you may remember, this came up with the BSB project, and this project, LCD2, is only showing a 5-foot walk. We wanted to bring that to your attention. I'm sure you already saw that. Other than those 2 things on the site plan, when it comes to the special land use, since the building is speculative, from an engineering standpoint, there really isn't anything for us to comment on, except to say when a tenant is secured, we recommend that they come before the Planning Commission and then subsequently the Township Board. And I will take any questions you might have.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for Rick? At this time, okay, thanks, Rick. Carol, did you have anything for us?
No comments on this.
All right. We have an applicant from Walbridge.
Good evening. My name is John Ackerman with Atwell. With me this evening is Adorno Piccinini from Walbridge and Guy Toro, the architect from Carlson Design Group. I'm going to share my screen real quick here. There we go. Hopefully that worked. Everyone can see the slide.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll be brief. LDC2 site is located on approximately 20 acres of Wallbridge's overall land holdings. As you can see on here, we've been before you already for the South Hill Business Park, which is improved and being constructed. We are moments away from paving the main road into the South Hill Business Park, and Adorno and Wallbridge have kept me busy doing lot fits and test fits for potential residents or potential tenants for the industrial park. LDC 1, which is located right here, when we originally presented it to you, we called it BSB for Big Spec Building, but since then Wallbridge, their marketing department took over, and now we have the Lion Distribution Center 1. That is, as if you've driven by, you can see that's going vertical as we speak, coming along really nicely. And so we're here in front of you this evening for the LDC2 site, which falls on approximately 20 acres of property, fronts along Grand River Avenue, and then backs up to the New Hudson Drain, and then contains Magna Parcel on one side as a neighbor, and there's an overhead utility easement right along our eastern side. The overall layout itself, as you know, as Chris kind of spelled it out for us, it's a little over 150,000 square feet. The ultimate goal is potentially one tenant, but probably looking at two tenants. Wallbridge is building this as a speculative building. This site, unlike LDC 1, this site can cater to both, but it's more manufacturing that they're marketing this site to, where LDC 1 was more on the warehouse distribution side. The site is overparked. The 202 spaces are required. We're showing 295. That tends to be the industry trend, is you want to try and get as many parking spaces as possible. We're showing 2 entrance points on Grand River Avenue. And just to touch on the traffic, we already have had preliminary discussions with the road commission, showed that our conceptual plan and their request was based on kind of what you see here. Is what we're proposing is tapers on both sides, but we're also showing some bypass lanes on the north side of Grand River as well that you can see on our layout plans to make sure that traffic flows efficiently through the area. Site's landscaped along the front, and we'll get into this a little bit more when we show the building itself, but the landscaping itself, we're showing a bermed area all along the front of the building with a mixture of evergreen, deciduous, and ornamental trees, along with shrubs and perennials. The trees right in the middle here are higher quality upright ornamental trees. They'll be larger when planted, and it'll enhance or assist in breaking up the mass of the building from Grand River. The stormwater management on this site is proposed right in this location right here. Try to minimize this as much as possible to minimize impacts to existing trees, but we wanted to place it in this location right here because of the direct outlet to the New Hudson Drain, which flows along the southern property line. Directly adjacent to the stormwater management system is a large regulated wetland complex, which is mostly in its entirety being preserved intact on the site. You know, typically when you look at an industrial site, you see a significant 75%-ish coverage. We're at 42% right now. So there's a lot of tree preservation, a lot of wetland preservation happening on this property. Turn it over. Guy Toro with Carlson Design is on the phone, or on the presentation as well. He can kind of walk you through the building itself.
Be happy to. Good evening. I'm Guy Toro with Carlson Design Group. We are the architects for the project. I know you've had a chance to look at the drawings. This building, a little over 150,000 square feet, but the biggest challenge is the front facade that runs along Grand River is just 735 feet long. So it's a very long, very linear facade. So the way that we dealt with it, the skin on it is precast concrete panels The base of the precast is articulated as in a CMU, a form liner in the precast, and the panels are painted. And we are rather horizontal in our detailing of it. And then to break up that facade, we view the overall as 3 pieces. And so we inset precast panels. We change the color of those panels so it basically reads as 3 buildings. And then, as John had mentioned, we're using the landscape as vertical elements to once again help with that. Entries into the building, as you can see at each end, that which faces Grand River, there's no parking. So we're not bringing people in from that facade, but still need to present to that major road. So there's glazing above for clear story. There's glazing below, which is for office space. We have a canopy that tracks around the building. In the front, it's more of an eyebrow because there are no entrance doors. And as it turns the corner, it becomes an actual entrance. To provide some scale to this building at a human level, as you get to the entry piece, we're using CMU. So it is a painted CMU, but it is a split face block. It gives a more human scale to it, and it breaks down and works with the glass to create an entry. And then again, we recess panels back in to reinforce where that entrance occurs. We change the color in them, and we use this skin on the west, north, and east sides of the building. So from street views, it's a very contiguous facade. And then the back, John, if you will bump to the next slide, is a traditional loading dock, but it's completely screened. You really don't ever see this facade. It has loading dock that is dock height, truck wells, and 2 entry points for trucks into the building. This is the business end of the building. It's also where the dumpsters are located. Sample board is a little more virtual. As I mentioned, the precast is painted, and we're in warm shades of gray, with the one punch in it is that very thin eyebrow that's presented, which is in the blue. So you can see the color 2 is really the base building color. And then we use color 5, which is the darkest, which creates those entry points. And then the others establish a base. And that's how we work on managing the scale of the building. Also in there is a sample of the precast or the split face block that we've shown in what the color would be. So they're all warm tones of gray, very neutral, and a rather contemporary building. Next slide, John. A couple of views, the main view from Grand River. Again, you can see where we're, and at this point in the landscaping design, it's just proposed, but we've got vertical trees that separate and break up that overall mask, recessed panels to, again, let you read this more as 3 buildings and really help with the overall scale. The second rendering is looking from the southeast. You can see the entry point for employees, the CMU facade that presents itself to Grand River, and how the skin tracks around. And then a shot from the rear of the building, which is the service side.
Thanks, Guy. So a couple things focusing on this screen right here, looking through the review comments. Everything that's mentioned is minor in nature. We have no concerns about any of that. We will absolutely look at altering the utilities. Some of my engineers tend not to think about parking lot islands when they're laying out the utilities, so I'll slap them around and we'll move that over and get you a couple trees over in the parking lot islands over here to get that resolved. The one thing I wanted to touch on is the sidewalk that you mentioned. So our property's right here. If you go directly west of us, this is the Magna Corporation. They've got a 5-foot sidewalk that runs in front of their site. A 5-foot walk was improved for the BSP/LDC1. If you go across the street, this is all 5-foot sidewalk that goes all the way down to the bypass road and continues up north along our property to here. So we're just kind of, I guess, rolling with the punches. It's what's been approved all along Grand River. So that's what we're providing to connect into. We'd be connecting directly into a 5-foot sidewalk adjacent to our property. As far as any of the other comments goes, one of the items was mentioned is mechanical equipment. The mechanical equipment will be shown on the rooftop, not on, it won't be ground mounted. It will be recessed in to minimize exposure to any visual exposure to anyone around the property. And auto turn, we did run auto turn. swore I thought it was actually on our fire protection plan. It's not on there. There's no issues with auto turn. We will add that layer for our resubmittal. With that being said, if there's any questions you have for us, again, Adorno Piccinini from Wallbridge, the developers on this meeting as well, we can answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, thank you. Thanks, John. Patty, do you know, didn't the board require, knowing the 5-foot sidewalk, they still required 8 foot? Was it on South Hill?
We had a big discussion over that and what was going down the side, and I can't remember now what it was.
I know it was 5 foot, and I thought.
Yeah, we made it, I think we made them make it bigger.
I can actually answer that for you if you'd like.
Yes.
We show a 5-foot sidewalk along Grand River to be consistent with all the rest, and we're showing an 8-foot walk along South Hill to match what's across the street on Magna, because Magna did the same thing. They put 8 feet on South Hill and then they did 5 feet along Grand River. So our LDC1 plan set matches exactly what they did.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any questions for John or Guy?
Just a comment, Mr. Chairman. I do like the renderings. 750 feet, that's a long way. We dealt with the other building at one point. It looked like an airplane hangar, and that came out nice. So I really like the way they split it up and trying to make a few lines of demarcation with that, again, 750-foot building. So I applaud you guys on that. I like that a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Chuck. Any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I've got a few questions, Mike.
Sure. Yeah, Mr. Town.
Well, I'm going to start off by saying, and I'm not trying to cause confusion, but on the first Wallbridge property, I was against the 5 foot, and the board, the planning commission agreed to 5 feet. So with that said, this planning commission should stay consistent with the 5 foot and the 8 foot. Next is the fire truck circulation. John talked about a lot of things, but that's got to be added to the drawing as well. And then I just want the applicant to be aware that you will be back to us if the Oakland County Road Commission does not approve those 2 entrances, for the record. And I think the rendering looks real good. It's really tough. Our last applicant in a special land use for wellhead protection, we approved that, but it's starting to become more common. And I kind of understand that on a speculative building. And it does have to come back to the planning commission as well as the board. So I guess that's okay with me, but I still would like to hear a comment from our attorney on that, just so it doesn't come back and snake bite us. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Actually, we're in the process of amending the application form so that it makes it very clear that although you may be granting this initial approval, there is no proposed use at that time. And so the actual person that goes in will have to apply for special land use. And the permit, the application will note that, just because it was approved at this level, it doesn't guarantee any approval later. So that's something that has been put together and will go to the admin meeting next month.
Okay.
To be added to the application.
Very happy to hear that, Carol. Thank you.
Thanks.
Mr. Chairman, one more comment.
Yes, sir. Please.
Carl, I agree with you. I don't know why we would go from 5 to 10 feet consistency, especially along Grand River. So I totally agree with you there. I looked at that too and was wondering if I even understood it, but I totally agree with you. It just needs to be consistent all the way down Grand River. So just wanted to add that.
Okay, very good. Thank you, James. Any other comments? John, I had a question on the photo or drawing we're looking at now. The building looks parallel to Grand River. But when I look at building, what was it, LDC 1, the one at on the southwest corner that's going up now?
Right here?
That one is not parallel, from what I can tell.
Correct. So both of these sites had some challenges. LDC 1 is parallel to South Hill.
But yeah, I'm talking Grand River though.
Pardon me?
Yeah, yeah, right, correct. But
Right.
Grand River is what?
Correct. So in LDC 1, we ran it parallel because that way you could maximize the efficiency of being able to get all the docking and everything that you need on the west side of the building. When we looked at this LDC 2 site, this was an extremely challenging site because of the wetland complex, the trees, everything else. We looked at a bunch of different options and came out with what you have in front of you. This enables us by recessing the docks in. This enables us to try and preserve as much of the wetland as possible. You have very little upland that isn't vegetated, that's not being utilized for some element of the overall design. So yes, you're right. This one does run parallel to Grand River. The LDC 1 actually runs parallel to South Hill and not Grand River, and that's just for an efficiency of the overall site for circulation purposes.
Okay. I do have a slight concern when I look at LDC 1, the building that's in the northeast, that's right on the corner. And that is, I assume that's 75 feet. Is it the same setback?
Yes.
And when you drive by there, I mean, it's almost like it blocks out the sun. It's so tall and so close to Grand River. This building is going to be much longer. It's almost going to feel like driving through a tunnel as we're driving along, or people are driving along Grand River with that length of building that close to Grand River. And that height, I'm assuming it's the same height.
So LDC 2 is actually, on LDC 1, the BSB, we actually had to go to your board of
ZBA.
we actually requested a variance on that site. And for a lot of, not all of the building, but the building height on that is in areas 10 to 12 feet higher than this one. This building does not exceed 45 feet and does not require us to go to your zoning board of approvals. So this building is a little bit smaller or shorter in stature than BSB.
Okay. All right, any other questions for John, your guy? Okay, all right, don't go anywhere. We're going to open this up to the public. Open up the public hearing. Jacob, do we have anybody?
Yeah, we had some people. Again, it's *9 to raise your hand if you'd like to speak to the board. Not seeing any hands, Mr. Chairman, so you guys can proceed if you'd like.
Okay, we'll give him one more minute. Okay, we'll close the public hearing. Back to the commission. Patricia, did you have any comments?
No, I agree with Carl. We should maintain that 5 foot because that's what actually is there. And it would look funny if we didn't. And I just have a concern with the length of the building. It's so long. I mean, I like the design. It's just, I wonder if that's enough, what they're showing. You know, like you said, Mike, it's going to seem like a tunnel, like you're going past this very long building. And I'm just, I don't know. It's long. So I don't know if that's enough of the building to be broken up,
I mean, I don't know the particulars of the landscape plan, but looking at if you can go to the facade where you're showing the landscaping, can you do that?
See,
It seems like you need more than that to
I know,
make it not look so long.
Yeah.
Fortunately, this, and I apologize, this elevation doesn't reflect all the trees. We didn't want to put all the trees up because we kind of wanted to show the facade of the building here for discussion of material and color selection.
Yeah, I really think the landscaping along there is critical to break up the mass.
Yeah, and it is much more dense. And right now, again, to show the building, you don't see the berm, which the landscaping sits on. So it even has
Yeah.
a stronger presence along that road.
So all along here, you have a meandering berm that sits, close to 10 feet high as well, which will help start to screen everything. While minor, the development, the building foot finished grade does sit below Grand River as well. The site falls from north to south, so that will help accommodate a little bit of this. And like I said, you have these trees are closer. There's more significant. There's more of them that was reflected in the rendering itself, simply because of what we already stated. We just kind of wanted to get everyone's views on the building itself.
John, this is Kurt Radke. Do you have a count of the trees?
Yes, we have, doing fast math here.
Sorry, Patty, I didn't mean to butt in.
Oh, no, I worry about it because
Yeah,
it's on
Something-
Grand River. I mean, and it's. a
yeah,
big
something
building.
more needs to be done, I think, but I can't.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell just from that rendering. It didn't look like, I'm like, that's the landscaping. It just, but it
Yeah.
makes sense that you wanted to show the building, but maybe you could have showed it without any trees, just so we saw it, and then a rendering out with the trees. Because.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
could Chris speak to the meeting the requirements on the landscaping in front, please?
Yeah, please. Chris, do you have any information?
Yeah, 1 second. Let me pull up the. So.
Chris, it'll help you on, I don't know if you have our plans on the landscape plan. We spell out exactly what's required and shows that we meet the
Yeah,
space.
so if you look at our review letter, it seems like they have provided the kind of minimum number of trees that are required. It doesn't seem that they've gone above and beyond, but that's not their job in relation to the landscape requirements. So they've provided, it seems like, what's required.
What size of trees are there? Are those shrubs with trees or are those all trees?
It's a mixture of trees and shrubs. There's about 300 shrubs out front.
Okay.
Hold on, let me break it down here.
Yeah,
We're showing out front.
I have it and it looks like, shrubs and then a few trees is all it looks. If that's.
Here's what I'm seeing proposed: 84 trees, 29 deciduous evergreens, 232 shrubs, 12 ornamental trees. If I'm reading it correctly,
Yes.
I have it in front of me. So that's the breakdown that I think you were looking for, Mr. Town.
Well, it depends, how many are going up front,
20
along Grand River?
All of those that were just discussed are all being proposed to be planted up front. So we have.
What about on your plan in the back to the south?
I'm sorry?
You have no landscaping to the south?
No. Okay, so hold on, let me, so in the front, on the north side of the building, all along that berm, we are providing 41 trees, 232 shrubs. Of those trees, the taller ornamental or the taller columnar trees are actually above and beyond. They're about 4 times the cost of what a normal tree that meets your minimum code requirements would be. Sorry, Adorno, I know you don't want to hear that, but they're very expensive, taller ornamental or the upright trees.
What size are they?
Pardon me?
What size? How tall? 4 foot, 5 foot, 6 foot, 10 foot? How tall are the trees?
Don't you call up the calibers?
They're ornamental tulips. The 2.5 inch caliper diameter caliper, but they're taller. So the ornamental or the deciduous trees are all measured by the caliper of the trunk itself, but the height will be much taller than your standard deciduous tree that's also being planted there. So then that's just along the front, but on the sides and the rears, we're showing about another almost 100 trees between all the evergreen screens and then all the trees that are being preserved in the rear. We're not taking those out. So there's a good amount of vegetation that's staying on the property as well.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean,
Mr. Town.
in my opinion, I looked at the landscaping plan myself as well, and and the rendering does not show the abundance of trees. And a columnar grows from the base all the way up. It's not elevated, just so you have an idea of what columnar means. And they did a great job with the landscape in front. I think every planning commissioner would be satisfied. It's just a shame that we can't pull up a picture of that right now. So
You don't
can
have,
take a look at that.
Mr. Chairman,
have the landscape plan to share?
Yep.
I can share, if it's okay with everybody, I can pull up the landscape plan.
Who's this, Chris?
Yeah, that would be me.
Here, I can bring it up. Yeah, myself as well to help you
Oh,
out.
okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Page 18. There you go.
Right, so you can see we show, and I know when we came in front of you for BSB, we tried to naturalize the plantings and we were told with it, don't naturalize it, give a consistent screening all the way across. So we took that to heart when we did the LDC1, but you can see a consistent, these are all deciduous trees, ornamental trees, these are all shrubs, and they're not small little shrubs. These shrubs are all going to be, 8-foot shrubs at maturity pretty quickly out of the gate here. By Burnhams and these dogwoods grow pretty quickly. And then the upright ornamentals, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 8 of those right in the middle here. And then we have 5 here and 5 here. So those are all taller upright trees. So, I guess shame on us that the elevation perspective does not represent that, but it's a pretty substantial landscape plan and it does meet all your ordinance requirements. If you want me to scroll around, and then evergreen screening all the way down the east or the western property line. And then we also show an evergreen screening along the eastern property line. And then everything in this thick scalloped area, those are all trees that are being preserved in the rear.
Can you go back to the drawing or photo, or I guess be a drawing of the front elevation of the building?
The renderings may be better because it shows the entire building. Right?
So where is the, show us the north facing render. Okay, there we go.
Oh, yeah, this is your facade all the way down Grand River. What this shows is the columnar trees here, but it only shows 5. We're actually doing 8. So these will be spaced tighter together as well. And then it does not show any, it just shows some small shrubbery along that area. Candidly, the landscape plan was getting massaged and wrapped up after this rendering had been contracted out as well. So that had something to do with it.
What is that on the building next to the tree in the center? I can't tell what color that is. There's like the two
vertical elements. Those are
that?
precast panels that sit back from the main facade of the building, and they're painted a warmer gray. So it's one of the darker grays that we use.
What do you mean it sits back?
The precast panel itself is 10.5 inches thick, I believe. And so the light colored panels will overlap the dark panels. So it'll recess back another 10 inches. one of the issues that we had with the site is we can't encroach any further north towards Grand River. So that locked in the front plane of the building, and we couldn't encroach on the wetlands in the back. So that locked the back plane of the building. And what we had left is what we had left. And we were trying to just work within those constraints.
While providing enough depth in the building, enough space in the building itself to make it marketable. The other thing, as Guy had pointed out, what you don't see on the rendering itself is the berm as well. And we have a massive landscape berm that goes along the entire frontage of this building.
Could you talk about the slope on that, John, on the berm? What the ratio is?
Side slopes, I want to say it's 4-to-1.
Can some type of dental molding be applied on the top to give it?
It does have a cornice. The issue you'll have is simply the scale of it, right? To any level, if it's that ornate, it just isn't going to show.
If it was a different color?
I'm sorry?
If it was a different color than the siding?
Yes, but again, it would read simply as a band, right? We do have a cornice up there. We're just using it to terminate the top to create a bit of articulation. You can see it somewhat in the, maybe in the second rendering below, right? You get to see the double lines. It'll create some amount of shadow, but it's still, you know, it's at a scale, it can only make so much of a gesture. We're 45 feet high, just a little under 45 feet. So they have to be bigger moves if you're actually going to see it and feel it. And I think, you know, truly, if we had represented all the landscaping, you probably would have no issue with the building because there isn't going to be a lot you're going to see anymore. Because it is so dense. In fact, when John first presented the landscape plan, I was wondering what was going to happen to the building because you're almost not going to have views of it as you're driving by any longer. Right? Because think about where you are on the road, sitting in a car or walking, the height of the landscape and what's left. So it begins to soften that whole face of the building. And we're almost fighting for a little bit of time to just, I even wanted them to open it up more on the corners. So you, at least as you drove towards the building, you had an understanding of where the entry points were. I mean, you're going to find them anyway, because that's where the curb cuts are. And then it gets pretty obvious. But as you go by, there's not going to be a lot exposed.
Sure.
Patty, do you have anything else to add?
No.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr. Chuck?
No, I nothing to add, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Who else hasn't? Mr. Mikovic.
I'm just trying to wrap my head around the landscape plan. I just wish we would have had that to make it a little easier to visualize. But other than that, I don't. Similar concerns of just the length of the building and how the landscape plan would actually look.
All right. Ron?
Yeah. I actually think the landscape plan itself looks great. I think there's plenty of stuff out front there personally. And I also like that the building is long rather than it having split up into 3 different buildings with 3 different driveways. I like having the long space between the 2 driveways. As I drive Grand River every day, I like that, you know, it's more of a corridor and you don't have all those spaces broke up. So I think it looks great. I like it the way it is. I think that berm is going to make a big difference that you don't see in the rendering. And I also think the 5-foot walk should be across there to be consistent with everything else. That's all I got.
Okay, very good. Mr. Aki?
I like the plan, the landscaping, nothing else to add. I think it's good.
Okay. Carl, anything else to add?
No, ditto on everything, meets my approval.
Right. Okay, very good. Well, let's start with the special land use.
Why don't you start with the site? Oh, go ahead.
Well, I
Go
was
ahead.
going by the agenda. But okay, we'll go with the site plan. Site plan review. Do we have consensus? Someone would like to make a motion?
I'd make a motion if I could, Mr. Chair,
Please.
to approve AP-21-12A Lion Distribution Center 2, the site plan, with everything mentioned in the McKenna letter, as well as the CES letter, the contingent upon the approval of the special land use from the board. And did I miss anything, ladies and gentlemen?
Traffic study? Did you want to mention the traffic study, Carl?
Sure. I mean, that goes to the Oakland County Road Commission. We made note of it earlier. So that's in the record.
I think you got it, Carl.
Okay, that would be my motion.
Okay.
Support.
Motion by Mr. Town, support. Was that Mr. Radke?
Yes, sir.
All right. Any other comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? All right, very good. On to special land use.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion, if I could,
Please do.
to, again, approve contingent upon the site plan or special land use contingent upon the applicant coming back before the planning commission and the board. And that would be for AP-21-12B. And because of the building being in a wellhead protection overlay district and contingent upon approval by the board.
I will support that motion, Mr.
Okay,
Chair.
I think basically what you're saying is that when a user is identified, that user will have to come in for special land use approval.
That's exactly what I said. Yep.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Mhm.
I supported that.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Town, support by Mr. Chuck. Any other comments? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? All right, congratulations, guys. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everybody. Have a great night.
Thank you,
You
guys.
too.
Thanks. Chris, we have next culvers. Did we already have the public hearing on that? I thought we did. Am I mistaken?
Yeah, so you guys approved or recommended approval of a special land use in late 2020, where a public hearing was held for
Okay.
the special land use that was approved.
Okay.
This is a rezoning that
Right.
there has not been a public hearing held for the conditional rezoning proposed right now.
Okay, all right. Okay, well, if you'd start us off on AP 2114B culvers, conditional rezoning, and
Yep.
also site plan review. Let's do both.
Yeah, so I'll start on the site plan review letter
Okay.
that was drafted. They're all together though. So as I noted, the Planning Commission heard this request for the culvers in 2020. It had recommended approval of the special land use. And then in in January of this year, the applicant received a variance to complete that approval for parking along the southern property line. And then since those approvals, the applicant has determined that the underground detention that they proposed or with the original site plan and special land use approval isn't the ideal solution for managing stormwater. And the reason that is this site, as you guys may recall, is split zoning adjacent to Pontiac Trail. The site is zoned B2, and in the rear it's zoned for single family residential. And so that stormwater really couldn't go on the residential portion. All of it had to be, everything had to related to the use had to be accommodated within the B2 district portion of the site. Because they determined that the underground detention couldn't work or wouldn't work or just wasn't feasible, they have proposed to rezone 0.8 acres, the rear portion of the site, from that single family residential to the B2 district, to be able to utilize that land just for stormwater management. And so I'll go into the conditions a little bit in the second review letter. But I'll just note that in our site plan review letter, we mostly just talk about the changes from the original site plan that you approved to this one. And all of those changes are east of the curb line, the original curb line. The site plan you approved for the restaurant with the circulation, the stacking, the building and setbacks remains the same and in compliance with the ordinance and the variance that was granted. Along with the stormwater detention, the applicant has proposed a substantial amount of landscape and berms for screening in the rear adjacent to the residential. And I just want to note at the end that, previously along that curb line, there were 13 proposed evergreens, and now in the rear, there are 28 proposed evergreens with those berms. So going into the conditional rezoning. Just for everyone, conditional rezoning is a request by the applicant to rezone, in this case, a portion of the property, and they have offered a set of conditions by which the site must develop in order to maintain that zoning. The conditions weren't offered by the township or representatives. They kind of are what the applicant has offered. And so the exact conditions that the applicant offered are listed in our rezoning review letter. The first condition is to accommodate the detention basin, floodplain, compensating cut under the B2 zone, the proposed B2 portion of the site. They have a condition regarding screening for the east and north portion of the site, as well as mounting and landscaping. And they have a condition to allow underground utilities to provide service to the parcel, including the placement of well for water. And then finally, their last condition proposed is that the 0.88 acres that would be rezoned be restricted based on the site plan. No structures, parking, storage, or accessory buildings would be permitted on the conditionally zoned portion of and the applicant will record a deed restriction to this effect. So those are the conditions that were offered to the rezoning, and then we go into our review of whether this meets the rezoning standards in the zoning ordinance. So the first thing I want to note is that the eastern portion of the site is not zoned for commercial use on the future land use map. However, we believe that with the conditions that the applicant has offered, the proposed rezoning does further several goals in the ordinance, and it specifically serves to protect the residential uses and separate them with adequate screening and buffering from more intensive uses along Pontiac Trail. The next one I will jump to is item 4 in the review. Will the amendment correct an inequitable situation created by the zoning ordinance rather than granting special privileges? And I think what we want to note here is that the site, because of its split zoning, has challenges present that restrict development in a way that a lot of other lots, in the township have to deal with. They have a limited size. They are already a narrow lot, which kind of instigated their need for the variance from the parking setback. We believe that the the conditional rezoning wouldn't grant special privileges, but would allow them closer to a level playing field and develop the site more appropriately. The next one I want to go to is, will the amendment set an inappropriate precedent? And I think that, what would have probably set an inappropriate precedent would be allowing the detention and storm basin planning to happen in the eastern portion of the parcel if it was continued to be zoned residential. I think that this allows the site to develop in an appropriate manner that protects surrounding uses even more so than the original site plan that you guys saw, ensuring that future development cannot take place on the eastern portion of the lot, whether it be single family or commercial. It will remain for that stormwater detention area. So with that, we believe that the conditions offered are appropriate and that the rezoning request generally meets the requirements from the zoning ordinance. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
All right, thank you, Chris. Any questions? Yes, please.
Can I interject?
Yes.
Okay,
Interject.
so what happened is after your initial approval, when they started putting everything together, the cost for the underground detention was so significant that they would not have been able to develop the site. So I received a call from Brian on this, and I have to tell you, I have a problem with a parcel of property that is split zoned. We shouldn't have that in our community, okay? So faced with that, I actually recommended that they apply for the conditional rezoning as the best way to address this peculiar situation, okay? You have a lot that's narrow in and of itself, but with the split zoning, it really renders it almost impossible to be developed, okay? So what they've proposed is to be able to move forward with the culvers to restrict that back portion that is currently zoned residential only for detention for whatever commercial uses might be on the front. And I feel that's a really good way to approach this situation.
Okay, all right. That makes sense. Thank you. And what was their response, culvers? Carol.
But
I'm sorry.
Carol, did you met with culvers? Is that what you said?
No.
Or,
When Brian and I discussed this, I
Oh, I
suggested
see, okay.
that the appropriate way to
Suggested,
address the
understood.
problem under
Right.
all the circumstances would be for them to apply for a conditional rezoning.
Okay, all right. Okay,
Okay.
thank you. Chris, anything else to add?
no, I think Carol summed it up well. I think we agree that the limitations put on the site by its size and the split zoning made it very difficult. And we think that the conditions they've offered serve to protect the adjacent residential and allow appropriate development of the current half of the site that is zoned for B2.
Okay, all right, very good. Rick, did you have anything to add?
Mr. Chairman, thanks. I think Carol and Chris addressed a lot of items. Just some technical issues here. I have no engineering issues with the conditional rezoning. We do have some issues with the detention itself. I note that they are showing 1-on-4 side slopes in their floodplain compensating cut and their detention basin proper. We require 1-on-5 or flatter, so some adjustments will need to be done there. We note that he is lacking a 4-bay, which is required by ordinance prior to stormwater entering his detention. I did not see, excuse me, soil borings in the footprint of the floodplain compensating area or the detention basin. So that would be required to verify groundwater levels. And I would like to see a drainage district map. The impervious area is almost unchanged, but there are some pervious areas that I feel may be tributary to the basin and the compensating cut. Having an overall drainage area map would be helpful. And I wanted to point out, because I don't know if this is taken care of, but perhaps the applicant can address it. We had brought up on the previous review the need for an ingress egress easement between this property and the property to the north because of that shared drive. And perhaps the applicant can address the status of that. I have not seen that yet, but perhaps the applicant can address that. And with that, I would be happy to take any questions you might have.
All right, great, thanks. Any questions for Rick or Chris? All right, great. Thank you, sir. Applicant, who's here tonight?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So my name is Kyle Rentmore with the Manic Smith Group. We are the engineers and assisting Charles with the application for this conditional rezone and site plan approval. Just to respond really quickly to Rick's comments, we did receive his comment letter regarding the easement. Our applicant will have that, I believe has that in hand. We'll get that to you, Rick, once we resubmit for detailed engineering approval. And I think all your other comments were pretty straightforward, and we will turn that around. Our project manager and engineer of record had a meeting conflict with tonight's meeting. So I've got a quick video and a presentation just regarding the conditional rezone. I will share my screen and and that should address a lot of those questions regarding that. Can you guys see the video really quick?
Yes.
Awesome. I'm going to play this and we'll open it up after that.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Mark Matthew with the Manic and Smith Group, and you've seen us before on this project for site plan review and for special use review. I'm sorry that I can't be with you in person tonight, but I do have another meeting conflict. I did want to give a brief overview of what our current request is right now. We are looking at a conditional rezoning for the rear portion of the Culvers property. It's currently zoned R0.3, and we are requesting a conditional rezoning to B2 commercial district. However, as part of the conditional rezoning, we're voluntarily giving up all allowable uses in that B2 zoning district, with the exception of appurtenances that support the development in the currently unrestricted B2 zoning district at the front of the property. As it stands right now, a residential district of that size is landlocked. It's not able to gain access through the subdivision in the rear. The only way to utilize that property would be for an adjacent landowner to purchase it, or to be used in concert with the project at the front of the property. This is essentially a deed restriction that preserves that area in perpetuity for green space, detention area, as well as the floodplain compensating cut area. The compensating cut area would just be temporary storage of floodwaters only during periods of heavy rain events. And as you know, the detention pond would be used periodically, both for water quality and to mitigate the impacts of the increased hard surface on the front portion of the property. Along with the compensating cut area, we are proposing a screening berm that would shield this project from all of the adjacent residential neighbors. On top of the screening berm, we will also have evergreen trees and plantings. And coupled together, it really should restrict the amount of light, sound, and any impacts to the neighbors that are coming from this project. As I said, it really takes that area that's currently open space and does preserve it as open space for the future, with just some slight regrading to support the use of the proposed culvers along Pontiac Trail. My colleagues and Mr. Paisley are also here tonight to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you for the opportunity to come before you. And please let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to just for visual sake, share this site plan. As Mark went over very thoroughly, the conditional rezone, and you guys are familiar with the site. I will just highlight this is the residential portion, the 0.88 acres that we're proposing a conditional rezone. As you can see, the increased landscaping that Chris mentioned, and evergreens and mounding, approximately a 5-foot mound adjacent to the residential properties, and the various plantings and ground cover, prairie seeding for the compensating cut area that will be maintained as such, like Mark mentioned. A couple of just aerial views. This highlights the, again, this tree screening, the mounding from the north and west and eastern residential neighbors, and while maintaining the same site layout in the front portion of the currently commercially zoned area. So with that, we'll open it up to questions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman and commissioners.
Okay, thank you, Kyle. Any questions for Kyle?
Mr. Chair, I do.
Okay, please.
So, Kyle, first of all, is that land in perpetuity? Forget it. It's going to stay there forever. Is that going to be hydro-seeded and fescue, or what kind of grass are you going to, once you put the detention basin in, are you going to regrass that area?
Yeah, so the detention basin will be, I can pull up.
Perpetuity was the word I was looking for. I couldn't say it.
Right. The detention basin will be just normal seeding, just for ease of maintenance and providing adequate volume. And that's this area right here. As you look to the east of, let's see here. As you look to the east of that, this is where we'll have the prairie seeding, which, covers the almost, since it's going to be a flat at that 5-to-1 slope, only a couple of feet deep over this large area, that will be maintained as such. Currently it's just mostly brush and unmaintained, and we're proposing just a nicer landscape feature there.
Oh, good. And you did mention the 5-to-1 slope. You said approximately 5 foot. And so I wanted to hold you down. So if we go in and look at it, we know that you committed to a 5-to-1.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. In the CES letter, we talk about the soil borings and everything else. You know that moving forward, these engineering drawings have to be complete before you can go forward on this project. If we approve it today, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, then I have no issues. And I think it's a great idea to get rid of that 03 residential and move it all to B2 anyways. And I love this conditional rezoning. I think it works really well on this property. And I think that homeowners benefit a lot more. I know they really don't want anything to go in there, but I think this is a win-win, and they have the right to build there. And I think we welcome culvers, and I think this is, you did a great job on it, Kyle. So thank you. That's my approval.
Okay, thanks, Carl. Any other questions before we open up public hearing.
Only question
Mike,
I had, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
The only question I had, I thought, and this was before I was a commissioner, before I was sworn in, but I was on the meeting. I thought that Jim had requested that they put a brick wall in at one point, a barrier for the houses behind.
Yes. So that was previous to this conditional rezone proposal. So prior to this revised site plan, essentially all of our we had a deeper compensating cut area here between this pink line and the curb, which in addition to the currently shown landscaping, we wanted to, it was requested to put a short wall just for, additional sound and visual barrier. Upon the revision of the site plan and expanding this entire area to a conditionally rezoned commercial, and adding these additional evergreens and mounding. Prior to this, we didn't have the space over here for the mounding. So that was why we had to, install or propose that wall and comply with that. Now that we have the space and the room to grade and do our earthwork, we're providing that 5-foot mound here.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Mike, can I add one more thing before we open the
Please.
public hearing? There's been some discussion about deed restrictions, but actually what would happen is if this is approved by the commission, I would prepare a conditional rezoning agreement that states all the conditions related to this rezoning, and that would be recorded against the property. So not a deed restriction per se, but the same impact.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Thanks, Carol. Kyle, could you explain that in the drawing they had a lawn grass, prairie grass? Then you said the area would be maintained. What's that mean? The area is going to be maintained?
Well, so when you look at the compensating cut area, this is just a visual of what we're envisioning that prairie seeding to be, to mix up and break up the landscaping. As far as the detention basin itself, where our primary stormwater is going to be handled, that will be a normal, grass seed mix with an access path for the, stormwater ordinance to be able to maintain the outlet structure, clean that, and then also remove sediment from that detention basin. So the prairie seeding mix isn't necessarily appropriate for the detention area where the primary stormwater is held, but for this area where it's a very shallow compensating cut, and rarely will maintain or see any flood water or any standard significant standing water. That's where we propose that prairie seeding mix. So again, following up with Rick's comments, and revising this basin layout slightly to accommodate the forebay ahead of the detention, it will still, again, for maintenance, mowing, and also sediment removal. That's why we kind of break up the different ground cover.
Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah. The only concern with the prairie grass, and I see the photo of the flowers. We were told that at one point from, I think it was Blue Cross Blue Shield. They were going to do that. And it's all weeds pretty much right now, but all right. Thank you, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
If you could, Jacob, if you could open up the public hearing. We're going to open up the public hearing now if you have anyone waiting.
Oh, we currently have nobody with us from the public.
Okay. All right, then we will close the public hearing. Thank you, sir. Back to the commission. Carl? You seem to be on a roll tonight. Would you like to make a motion?
Oh, sure, Mr. Chair. I get a feeling that everybody's comfortable with this conditional approval. So I will start with, but I'm going to start with AP-21-14A, the site plan review.
Okay.
And I would make a motion to approve the new site plan with the new addition of the detention basin and everything that was mentioned tonight. Making sure that everything is brought up to snuff on the engineering drawings for CES. And the easement is ingress egress easement is produced. And so that would be conditioned upon our approval of the conditional rezoning.
Support.
Very good. Okay. Carol, anything to add to that?
Nothing to that.
Okay, very good. Carol, good job. Motion by Carol Towns, support by James Chuck. Any other comments? This is for site plan review.
Actually, that was Kurt Radke, Mr.
Oh,
Chair.
Kurt, sorry.
Yep, that's okay.
He was throwing his voice. Everyone, any other comments?
One quick comment. I'll be
Yes.
quick and won't be redundant, but I think Carl did. I mean, he said it all. It's a win-win, and Carol's right. I mean, what else are we going to do with that 0.3? I think everybody wins in this. I like the fact that the business will maintain it in perpetuity. It has to be kept the way it's agreed upon, or there's consequences. So I think it's a win for everybody. That's all I want to say.
Okay, very good. All
I
right,
agree also.
Who's that?
Patty.
Patricia.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, I agree 100%. So
Very good.
I'm very pleased.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Okay,
Plus, I
very
want a
good.
butter burger.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
If I may, I'd like to make a motion.
And Carl, before you start,
recommend-
I'm sure any motion will also include the condition that they execute the conditional rezoning agreement.
Yeah, with the deed restrictions on it, like Carol said. So with that said, AP-21-14B, culvers conditional rezoning. This is contingent upon the board approval. And changing the R303 portion to the rezone to B2 to allow the land to be used for detention basin. And everything that we talked about tonight, like Carol mentioned, the restricted property with the deed restrictions and the 5-to-1 slope. And that's about it. That would be my motion.
I'll
Hard to
support
do
that.
these stuff when you're not in person.
Very good.
I'll support that, Mr. Chairperson.
As Mr. Chuck.
Yes.
Yes, very good. Kelly, did you get all that?
I'm good, Mike. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you. Okay, any other comments? Okay, all those in favor of Mr. Towns' motion?
Aye.
Aye.
Oppose? All right, Kyle, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, commissioners. Have a good night.
All right.
Do.
Chris, did you have some master plan? Are we discussion?
I just have a quick update for you guys. The survey is up and functioning. It's on the township's website, and the link can be shared. Brian said today that we received 200 responses in the first 2 days, which is excellent. And that once we close it, we'll aggregate all the data and bring it back for you guys. What I'll say, just a side note, you know, I recently did a survey for the Parks and Rec Board, and when they shared it on social media was when the numbers went highest. So you could see the spikes after they shared it. We had it on the website, but them pushing it out. And so if you guys have it and are willing to share it, I think that would do a lot to bring in responses from the community. So just something to think about, but the response rate so far is good. And we'll have more for you soon.
Thanks. How long is that going to be open?
I'm not sure exactly how long he set it for, but you know, it went up just last week, and so I assume it'll be at least, you know, a little bit longer.
Okay. All right. Good. Thank you, sir. Patricia, you have anything for us?
No, not tonight. My
Oh.
daughter's here from New Jersey, so I'm kind of in a little hurry, but I don't, you know what? I did not attend my, our township board meeting on Monday. I was on vacation in New Jersey, so I don't have a report.
Understand.
Good for you.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
All right. Very good. Any other comments?
Another good meeting. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
All right. 8:26, Mr. Chuck.
Yeah, that's about right.
Okay. I thought you said that. I heard 8:26
Yeah.
when you logged on. Okay. Well,
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
motion and support. We'll give that to Patricia. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Okay, very good. Good meeting.
Goodbye, everyone.
everybody.
Good
Bye,
night,
everybody.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.
Enjoy your daughter